Awesome. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to the CoderPad Demo Day, how to screen and interview AI-enabled developers. It looks like we have a couple people still trickling in. It looks like there's about 10 people in the waiting room or already joining us. 17. Um, so we'll get started here in just a couple minutes. In the meantime, Mike, if you want to go ahead and get the poll launched, we're gonna throw a poll on the screen just to see how comfortable everybody is. Um, if we want to get that started. Cool. So as people trickle in, go ahead and answer this poll. How prepared do you feel about hiring skilled developers in the age of AI? That'll help us shape our demo moving forward. Awesome. Great, we'll keep that poll on the screen a little bit longer. We'll go ahead and get started. Cool. If we want to close that poll, that would be great. It's looking like some people are feeling a little less prepared than others, which is no problem at all. We will get started, we'll dive in, and we'll make sure our experts, Frank and Nathan, cover some of the basics and dive deeper into the product. So, Mike, if you want to go ahead and get us going, it looks like we have 40 people joining us so far. I'm sure everybody will continue to trickle in, but let's get cooking. Cool. Before we get started, I'm just going to high level go over some housekeeping items. Mike is kind of the Wizard of Oz here, operating behind the curtain. He'll be in the Q&A and in the chat. This webinar is being recorded, so after our call today, that will be sent out within the next like 24 hours or so. Any questions throughout the presentation, go ahead and drop them in the Q&A. We will get to as many as we can during the last segment, the live Q&A. But we'll go ahead and get started with our introductions. I will introduce you guys to our lovely panelists. We'll dive into the demo, and then we will hop into the live Q&A. Cool. Mike, if you want to hit the next slide, that would be awesome. Cool. Like I said, we'll hop right into introductions. I'm Caroline Matz. I do integrated marketing here at CoderPad, but that is not as exciting as the experts we have here with us today. We have Frank, VP of Product, and Nathan, VP of Engineering, to give us a demonstration today and walk through how the AI role is changing and how our hiring processes need to follow suit. So cool. If you want to hit the next slide, Mike, that would be awesome. Nathan, I'm going to kick it over to you if you want to dive into our products. I know that only two of the four are on the screen, but those are what we'll focus most on today. So if you want to give us a high-level rundown, that would be awesome.
Yeah, we're going to be focusing on screen and interview today, but here at CoderPad we have a large suite of products that hopefully help you hire the best possible technical candidates for the roles that you have open. We're going to be talking about screen and interview today. So screen is, top of funnel. I've got 1,000 candidates for, a couple of open roles. I need to assess whether they have the basic skills to be able to do that job in order to pass them on to a hiring team, which is much more in-depth interview and much more expensive as far as time is concerned. So we have screen there, and Frank's going to walk through the details in screen, and specifically, 10,000 foot product view, but also, how do we have some of the features in the screen that combat some of the concerns we're hearing about cheating in AI, and then we have interview, which is for synchronous use cases where you want to have a face-to-face discussion where a candidate is solving a problem with one or more members from the technical team on your team, and it is completely synchronous. I'll walk you through a demo on that. That is meant to be more, technical first screens, final interview rounds, and all that kind of good stuff. So we'll talk through those. The other two products we have is CoderPad Play, which is a sort of events-based program, and then we have CoderPad Map, which is upskilling. for your existing team, which we're not going to be talking about those today. So we'll be focusing on screen and interview.
Awesome. Let's get started. That was a great overview. Thank you so much, Nathan. Frank, do you want to kick us off and get us started as far as diving into the product? And I'll go off camera, just like I said, so I'm just not nodding so excitedly. I love diving in deeper to a product too. So go ahead and let's rock and roll.
Yeah, so welcome everyone. So what you're looking at on the screen is CoderPad screen. And so again, this is meant to be a filtering mechanism towards the top of your funnel. It is asynchronous by design, and you are essentially sending these assessments, these tests, and within these tests, I think at its heart is what we have, our question bank, which is what you see here. And so our question bank, as you can see, covers a number of different technical domains, everything from, as Nathan kind of highlighted, a typical language-independent question, which is geared towards junior candidates and is a more, a style of question that they can answer in whichever language that they want, because by nature, with more junior candidates, you tend to be more open. You're not hiring them for any specific expertise. You're hiring them just for basic computer science type knowledge. And as we scroll down the list, you can see that we cover a number of different things, all the way from what might be interpreted as not a typical dev tool, but is a technical skill. And I guess this is what I want to stress, is that we handle the full gamut. So something like an Excel, and you get everything from a Vue as a front-end framework to Tableau and so on. And so that's the breadth of skills that we surface and that we're able to test within our platform. And so as far as what one of these, because really we're here to talk about coding questions. And so what one of these questions looks like, I'm going to go ahead and open up this one question titled, parsing a robots.txt file. As you can see on the left-hand side, this is when a candidate is taking a test, what a singular question, you can see this shows question 1 of 1. If, of course, you have a test with many different questions, this might be 1 of 5, 1 of 20, or gosh forbid, 1 of 100, or whatever it is that you deem fit. I do not recommend extra lengthy tests because that is a surefire way to get candidates to not submit or not complete. But what we have on the left are the instructions, and then we have an ability to write code on the right. I am the product person, not the developer, so you're not going to see me fail. And then, as you can see, you can run your tests and you can hit submit. And because I am not a developer by trade, you can see that I'm failing these tests. And so that is what a technical question looks like. And again, we have a healthy question bank that kind of takes you through all these many different coding challenges. Now, that kind of gives you an idea of what our questions look like. In nature, what we've built is an ability to send these in, again, a test that composes a couple different questions. And so we're going to take a look at something we've anonymized from one of our customers, an autonomous driving company. And so to take a look at what their tests looked like, you can see it had a couple of different components. They're focusing and they develop in Java. So there's a couple things, Caroline mentioned at the top, in the age of AI and these cheating concerns and so on. One of the things you'll notice is that this test has 3 different components. Java quiz, so more multiple choice, Spring Framework quiz, and then Java coding exercise. And you'll also notice that we're pulling from what we call a random block. And so you can add questions, you can add random blocks. And what a random block is this a group of 4 Java coding exercises? And what we then do is we automate this randomization and selection of, we want Java questions of equal type of difficulty and nature, but ultimately we will randomize that so that not only is it just randomizing the order, but these 4 are chosen from a much larger population of questions, so that essentially we are, every test is going to be slightly different. It's going to be the same skill level, and because we've taken a lot of care to make sure that they take, the same amount of time and the same amount of level of complexity, same skill sets that you're testing, but the actual questions are going to be different. And so that's what it looks like in terms of now taking one of those component questions that I was referring to, placing it within a larger test, randomizing it, and then essentially sending it to candidates. Again, I can click on the preview, and this is what you would see. There's a tutorial that we provide to help candidates understand. So within our platform, you can do everything from send the test with the message and the email. What they will receive is a little URL addressed to them. And when they click the URL, this is the screen that they would see, hi, you've been invited to take the test here for CoderPad or, whatever company that you work for. You have the ability to start a tutorial. So this we found helps ease the, make them familiar with the environment that they're going to be dealing with, and then, they can start the test. Other settings that I think are important to understand beyond the, maybe naming and how many days till this link expires, they see. We do support a number of different languages. I think this test has been enabled from English, French, Spanish. I can also enable it for Chinese. And we have about 30 other spoken languages that we also support. And so, yeah, should you want Hungarian and so on, we do allow that within our platform to make candidates comfortable. We also allow candidates to see a simplified version of the report so they can get appropriate feedback. I think one of the things that we found from candidates is that they really want to know how they did. And it's more than just hey, you're getting moved on or not moving on to the on-site stage, but they want to know, have a little bit more detail. And so we've automated that process to help you provide feedback to your candidates. We allow different ways to time, whether it's a timer by question or a global timer. But then, yeah, I guess what I wanted to get down to was this test integrity portion. And so, as Caroline kind of mentioned at the top here, in a remote world where you are taking these asynchronous tests, there are I guess integrity concerns, a really suspicious activity that we sometimes see. And so I think, yeah, as you can see, and I'll bear with me, I'll read through it, but copy paste blocking. We do prevent the ability to prevent somebody from copying. In other words, we're presenting the text in a question not as a picture so that it is, much harder to copy paste. And we're preventing pasting back into the developer environment. Along with that, I guess it should be said, we do monitor for people who leave the tab. And so, of course, if they're navigating over to somewhere else, call it your ChatGPT window or whatever, that we do track that and show that in playback and surface that as suspicious activity where somebody leaves for an inordinate amount of time, or when they are, submitting code very quickly. And we are also looking at typing behaviors as well. To understand, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. We track IPs and geolocate and so on, and there's a bunch of other things that I'd be happy to dive into, but that's how we understand, and I call it monitor what is going on in the environment, so we understand where work is being done or where work is being brought in from other places. I think I do think it's important to stress that these tools are here to stay. Our goal here is not to fully prevent them, but to incorporate them potentially into the process. And where I'd encourage you, and I know Nathan will get into this as he goes into the live environment, is that really to promote this level of thinking of we are in a world where people use AI or, to get more specific, a Cursor or Copilot or some of these tools. And so what we are directionally headed towards is incorporating those as part of the process. How you prompt a large language model is actually a skill in and of itself. And so that's where we're headed with our product. Continuing on with our test integrity settings, we also have follow-up questions. And so this is something where we are presenting as it says, a follow-up to your submission, where somebody might type something in fairly quickly into a coding exercise, and it might be, hey, along the lines of why did you submit that? Well, not why did you submit, sorry, but tell me a little bit more. What were the trade-offs? What other factors came into play? How you scale this up? There are follow-up questions to exhibit a level of thinking beyond, can I just type in this code or potentially copy this code from elsewhere and hit submit? Because that's essentially where the human comes in, right? We're not just copying and pasting from ChatGPT and into production code and hitting submit and everything's great at this point in time. There is a human involvement of trying to understand what that code even was. And then beyond that, webcam proctoring, we have that with an analysis and a forced full screen mode to take up the full window.
I hate to interrupt. I think there's a great question that could be addressed actually
Yeah.
as a whole instead of just in the chat. The question is, how would CoderPad know if someone is taking help from an AI tool? There are a lot of ways to cheat with AI without changing the tab. One scenario this person saw was having a mobile device stick to the laptop, and he wasn't getting help by AI or he was getting help by AI without getting caught. So I think we can address, there are a number of ways to cheat, of course. I mean, in any industry and in any interview. So maybe we just circle back on that, but we also talk a little bit more. I know, Nathan, you'll get into it about allowing AI and knowing.
Nathan, I saw you come off mute, so it looks like
Yeah, I can. So I can address really quickly, and then I'll go in a little bit more detail when we get into interviews. So, somebody who is so convinced that they need to cheat the process, they will use as many external devices as they possibly can. I think the best way, and I'll go into this in a little bit more detail in the interview demo, is to somebody who's going to be typing something from an external device, getting help from an external device. The best way to catch those people is prepare your interview team to be able to dive deep with them on all the solutions that they provide, because somebody who is just parroting off something that they're either hearing from an external source or getting from a second monitor or getting from a second device, they're not going to be able to really dive deep into the thing that they've typed into either screen or interview. I'll talk a little bit more about that in detail, and it's honestly it's pretty easy to catch if your interview team is prepared to dive deep with those candidates.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I think not only if your interview team is prepared, but you have a tech stack that supports that. So perfect. Thanks for answering that live. Appreciate the questions. Keep them coming, y'all.
Yeah, and I guess one last thing to piggyback off of that. Thank you, Nathan. We're not supposing that you're going to catch everything right within one stage. What we're showing through our products is a process. We do enable automated follow-up questions, but at some point, yeah, there may need to be a human who dives in deeper, and that is by design with the second part of this demo with our second product here within interview. But thank you for the question. Keep it coming. As we look at this test, what we can see here is a display of candidates who have submitted this test, and some have scored quite well, some have scored quite poorly. I guess just to scroll down to somebody who did maybe a little bit in the middle, what we can quickly see is a very quick summary overview of their skills and how they did. And, certainly we are tracking their locations and so on, as I've mentioned at the top. And then we also have a very detailed report where, we can see each of their submitted answers, what they got right and wrong. And I'm going to scroll all the way down to where it gets a little bit more interesting with our coding questions, where we are tracking keystroke playback. You can see we are having everything from inactive periods to where they're editing the code, and we're watching this a little bit live and understanding their train of thought, right? And this is where also, quite honestly, we are analyzing typing behavior as well. I think, in that mobile example where somebody's just straight off spending an upfront time thinking and then just typing and then hitting submit. I mean, that's typically not an ordinary method or how a human thinks and how a human works their way through the problem. And so, yeah, as you can see, stop this. We are tracking everything from when code was run to when the candidate was inactive to when they switched to a different tab to any and all of these things to fully inform you to make the right decision do you care about that? Do you not care about that? And to really come armed with here's how the candidate arrived at the ultimate solution here. I think this is also an opportunity for some of those candidates who might be on this cusp. I think we all deal with that. We all wish that we lived in a world of black and whites, whereas we live in a world of grays. And so there's oftentimes a candidate who, maybe did everything right. I think in school we experienced this. You did everything right, but the last part, you got the answer slightly wrong, but all the work into it was correct. And this allows you to maybe come in for those candidates, and you can review and see, maybe they got the last 2 lines wrong, but their thinking was right, and so you can take a look and get to that level of nuance. And so that's it with a playback. And I guess one additional thing that I'd like to show is that we also do have test insights where we kind of show here is the average score across the test, and kind of give you a quick summary of what you're seeing at a glance for this test. Because again, we know that you will oftentimes send these asynchronous tests not to 1 or 2 candidates, potentially to, I think in this case, it was 500 candidates for this specific test. And so with that, we want to be able to have you understand not just the status of the candidates, but even is this the right test? And so, where you might see a skew of a bunch of scores in 90s and then everyone else, the bars are low, then that's probably not a great test, or vice versa. If you see everyone failing it, it's probably not a right test. This test, again, we took this from an autonomous driving customer, actually has a nice curve in it. So it does show some differentiation across the candidate population. And so you can see, across the 500 candidates, only, 14% scored here, and, a much smaller portion, only 2% scored in this high-end range. With that, I think that's, again, the filtering mechanism that's upfront within our product suite, within our platform. And what we were trying to go for is being able to create an ideal coding assessment in, honestly, less than a minute, being able to engage developers with relevant tests that, befit their skill set, and allow you as a user to spot candidates at a glance with the full knowledge of, like, how do they arrive at this? Do they go outside, or do they, do all their work within the confines of our product?
You're on mute.
I was on mute. Like, that's awesome. Thank you so much. That was really helpful. That was a great walkthrough. Should we kick it over to interview?
Yeah, let's do interview. So let me share my screen. So again, just to level set where we are. So Frank just gave a demo about CoderPad Screen. Again, Screen is focused on more top of funnel, filtering out candidates, making sure that they have the basic requisite skills to be able to succeed in a technical interview, more technical interview with the team. This is shifting to CoderPad Interview that is meant for synchronous use cases, and synchronous meaning you're actually doing an interview live with your hiring team of people, where Screen is completely asynchronous. So just give a quick tour. This is the UI that Frank started with. This is our dashboard for everything. So you can go ahead and click into CoderPad Interview, and you can see all your pads and questions and all that kind of good stuff. I'm going to click Create Pad, walk you through some of the questions really quickly. This is the default landing page where you land on your default language of choice, which you can set in your settings. Going through some of the questions really quickly, I'm going to show you a sort of a realistic question that we set up for a customer. So what you can do here, this is a question bank where you can have all of your questions that you have set up for for organizational purposes. Like, the way I've used this in the past is organize these by role. So if you have, you're hiring a data engineer and you're hiring a front end role, you have these separated out. And you can reuse these. So once you set up a question, you can reuse them over and over in as many candidate interviews as you want. So these are all organizational questions that were set up. I am going to, so this is a interesting React question where you get to see all of the instructions for the candidate. You get to see the starter code, and you can then add it to a pad, which I'm going to do right here. So as this starts up, let me move left to right really quickly. So this should look really familiar to most developers. So this is all of our interview product is based off of VS Code. It's meant to be a familiar experience that developers can jump into with very little like, hey, what is this? I'm not familiar with this. So it's a very familiar environment. On the left, you see a file tree. You can drag and drop whatever you want to here. You can set these up in any way that you want. We, of course, have examples for you to start from. But this is a question that we set up going left to right. You can click into each file and you'll see what's in each file. Works just like any modern IDE. These are all editable in real time. The instructions are then on the right, so you can see, you can set up different sort of layered parts to the interview for the candidate to walk through. So there's 5 parts in this one. On the right-hand side, you have program output, which is, this is a React project. So it's so there's a large front-end component. So as you're making changes to the React app, you will see them in the UI here in real time. So this is just an app where you can, it's a real estate listing app where you can filter by, available or pending and stuff like that. So this was for a customer that is in the real estate-ish business, which is really cool. And then you have private interviewer notes, which is you can set up for your team to either take notes on how the candidate is doing or nudges for your team to make sure that that you cover specific things. You can set these private to interviewers only. Going back, I'm going to go to the AI Assist tab in just a minute. You have the server, which is running, which gives you all the server messages. You have a shell, which this is a fully Dockerized environment that is specific to your pad only. So you can do literally whatever you want to here except destroy the environment. You can install custom packages. You can do anything that you can do on a terminal, literally except destroy the environment, which is pretty cool. And then you have a console, which works exactly how you think it should. So all of the things a developer would find familiar and that you would need to conduct a realistic interview are within the product, which is pretty cool. So again, this is a React example. Moving on to the AI Assist tab, this should look pretty familiar. This is literally ChatGPT in a window. Taking a step back for a minute. So our pitch for interviews is, doing a technical interview, you should give candidates all the tools that they have on the job to be able to do their job. So, the vast majority of engineers for decades at this point have been using the internet to help them, do part of their job. Hey, I'm not familiar with this language, or maybe not this framework, or I'm not familiar with this library. I need to go look it up. Hey, I don't really remember how this part of React works. I need to go look that up. Our pitch for using ChatGPT and other AI assistance tools in an interview is really about giving them the tools that they're going to use on the job to be, that they would use on day one of the job. So this works exactly how a ChatGPT window works. So let's pretend that that I don't know how to render something in React. Let's say, how do I render JSON data structure in React? Since this is a React project, I press go, and then it spits back exactly what ChatGPT would spit back. And so it's important to note that the whoever's in this pad would see this at the same time. So the interviewer sees all of the interactions with ChatGPT. The interviewer sees everything, or the people in the pad see everything that everybody else is doing, which is great. And so you can use this as a mechanism to get as close to what on the job experience looks like. Now, one of the objections I could hear about using ChatGPT or Claude or any other tool, or even Google search in an interview, is, hey, aren't they just going to cheat? Maybe I typed in something very specific into ChatGPT, and I'm just going to copy and paste that into my IDE, run it, and solve the problem. My response to that would be, the idea isn't really to limit the candidate's ability to use tools. The idea is if they're going to use a tool that they're going to use on the job every day, and they're going to copy and paste something into the IDE to solve a problem or something like that. The idea would be for, and this goes back to the question a little bit earlier, like how do you really see if somebody is cheating and copying and pasting things in from anywhere? If your interviewing team is prepared to dig in with the candidate, it becomes very clear that they're unable to, start with something that came from the internet, wherever it came from, and then really go deeper into that. So I would say, we encourage all of our customers to allow candidates to use ChatGPT in an interview, just because it's such a normal part of developers' workflow at this point. And yeah, so that's really the pitch for using this in product. I would even say that it makes it easier to catch people who are trying to cheat, because they're going to try to copy and paste something in, and they're not going to be able to go deeper into, why that works, why this is a good solution. They're not going to be able to expand upon that solution, and that's a pretty good signal for your hiring team. But I do want to mention that you can totally turn this off if you feel differently. If you don't want ChatGPT in an interview, you can absolutely turn this off, and the AI Assist tab is nowhere to be found. So that is ChatGPT. And our pitch for using AI assistive tools in the interview. Coming back up a little bit more, so we have a variety of languages available. Pretty much, I would say we cover 95% of the use cases in market for interviewing candidates. So we've got multi-file projects, which are basically, this is our version of, this is a full VS Code-ish type experience. You click into these, you'll get a multi-file experience. You have single file experiences, which is just a single pad, so no file tree, no terminal, nothing like that. We've got a variety of front-end frameworks. We already covered React. We cover a bunch of these here. We've got some back-end frameworks, which is good for hiring back-end developers who are going to be working with one of these Python, Java, or Node frameworks. We've got some mobile development stuff that we're going to be adding to over time. SQL, we do support spreadsheets. There are a variety of data analysts that use spreadsheets on a day-to-day basis, so we support interviews there as well. Jupyter Notebooks, and then which is a variety of different flavors of Jupyter, and then a variety of documentation if you want to test somebody on Markdown, or you want to see how someone is solving a particular problem and just have them write it out. You can do that as well. So that is the question bank. That is the React example. Jumping into drawing mode really quickly. So if you want to do an architecture interview, or you want a candidate to be able to describe a workflow for a problem that you want them to try to solve, we absolutely support that as well, which is pretty cool. So if you want them to put together decision points between different states and all that stuff, you can totally do that. So you can connect these in exactly the way you think they should work. The most common use case is for customers to upload an architecture diagram and then have candidates annotate that architecture diagram when they're challenged with, hey, how would you scale this particular component out? Or, if we had a DDoS on this part of the system, how would you change this architecture to be able to handle that? And so on and so forth. And again, just going back to a point I made a little while ago, this is all, so whatever I'm doing here, anyone who's in the pad gets to see exactly what I'm doing in the pad at all times, which is very cool. And it's all available in playback, which I'll go through in just a minute. So you can also do video calls with EncoderPad. So literally, it's just you click the start call button down at the bottom. You can join a call within the environment. So if you want to keep literally all of your whole interview within in the session, you can totally do that. You select a webcam and microphone. My webcam and microphone are stolen by something else right now, so you can't do that. But you can totally do a full interview without having to ask a candidate to join Teams or Zoom or anything like that. So that is all of that. One thing, well, let me pause for a minute to see, is there any questions in the chat, Caroline? I haven't been looking at it. Let me go take a look.
No, I'm back. No questions as of
Cool.
now, but I think this is a natural break to, if anybody does have questions while we are in the live demo, if there's something specific you want to see while we have our experts, feel free to drop those questions in and we can dive a little bit deeper before we fully scale to the live Q&A.
Cool. All right, I'll keep it moving. Okay, so once you finish the interview, which you just click, you've done a bunch of magical stuff, you've run an hour-long interview with a candidate and your hiring team, you click into interview, then the interview is done. I'm going to switch to another pad. So I'll show you the basic UI here, and then I'll switch to another pad to show you some features that we have as a part of Playback. So what Playback is it's similar to what Frank demoed with CoderPad Screen. You get a full view of what a candidate did at all times. So let's go over and click the AI Assist tab so you can see that I asked a question and then ChatGPT responded to me. You can see all of the drawing mode stuff, which is really cool. I didn't make any code edits, so you don't really see anything. It's pretty uninteresting, but that's the idea in Playback. I'm going to jump in really quickly to another pad that is much more, it's an actual interview that happened. So you can see there were 3 people in this interview. You can see, so it ran from 1:22 p.m. to 2:02 p.m., so about 45 minutes. And you can see all of the things that happened within the pad. So literally you can press play or you can scrub through the whole thing. You're not going to want to watch 45 minutes of code writing, but you can see literally what the candidate did at all times, which is awesome. You can see who did it and when. Looks like Matt was the person doing the candidate doing the interview, which is cool. You can see how many edits they made, how many runs they made. You can see Mustafa's edits as well throughout the interview experience. But the one thing that I did want to highlight here is we do have some interview insights, which once the interview is complete, it gives you a sort of summarized view on exactly what happened. So it gives you durations, it gives you, one feature I haven't talked about is transcription. So you can also opt into record either via the video calling mechanism I talked about before, or you can join Zoom and then share your audio with the interview product. And what you can do, what it does is it literally transcribes everything that anyone says during the interview to the pad. And I'll show you what that looks like in a second, but this is a summary of that. So Matt talked for about 20 minutes. Mustafa talked for about 26 minutes. We've got some summarization about code and questions, basic things, how much code was run, any suspicious behavior that happens. So there are a variety of different things we highlight here. You can see, somebody left the pad 7 times, took 2 minutes outside the pad. That's not particularly weird, but we do highlight that. So in an instance where a candidate is spending a lot of time outside of the window, this would be highlighted here without you having to scrub through the entire interview and find all of that. So like towards the end, you can see like here, clicked away for 165 seconds. There's a little bit of it at the beginning as well. If somebody is leaving or copying and pasting, I'll show you an example of that in a second. It'll be highlighted here and in the summary, which is cool. Yeah.
Hate to interrupt. We do have a question that I would love to just quickly breeze through or address right now. But
sure.
Are there APIs for partners to integrate the interview tool and Playback into other tools? I think that's an excellent question.
Playback, so we have a variety of APIs available. We've got APIs for, it's probably not related to this question, but for ATSs, we have APIs specifically for interview and screen for you to push and pull questions into the tool. We do not have an API for pulling out Playback.
I think the question, was more broadly, do we have APIs? Yes, we do have publicly facing APIs. We believe that our docs are pretty good and that we make it pretty easy to use them. I guess the short answer is yes. And as Nathan mentioned, we have everything from use cases to ATS integrations that involve APIs to we have companies that do directly use our APIs as part of their interview process, typically larger enterprises. And we also, by the way, via API support other platforms. Those of you who don't know, our screen product actually underlies LinkedIn Learning. And so if you go into LinkedIn Learning and you use you try and take a coding course and so on, you will see that CoderPad actually powers all of that. And so I guess if there's anything to take away, yes, we have a very broad and expansive API with full functionality.
Awesome. Thank you.
Perfect. All right. So let me show y'all 1 second, a different example of, so if somebody copied and pasted code, so you'll be able to see that here. So you can see in the timeline, if somebody's copying and pasting code, it's pretty easy. So this person pasted something externally here. So you can see a big old block right there. It's not too big, but it was pasted from an external source. So that gets highlighted relatively easily. There's another one here. So this person copied and pasted something externally. So it's very easily highlighted. You can see them. There was no interview summary in this one, but you can see the copy and paste events too. So any concerns about somebody using AI products outside of the interview, like it's pretty easily highlighted here, especially in the case what we talked about before, where somebody maybe has a second monitor and they're running code somewhere else, or they're pulling code from somewhere else. The tool highlights that pretty efficiently. And then going into transcription for a minute. So like I said, you can opt in, you can have the candidates opt into being fully transcribed. This is the entire conversation in text form, and you have timestamps for all of them, which is really, really helpful. We're going to be building some summarization functionality on top of this in the future that will be pulled out in the interview summary tab. But this is really, really useful for you to be able to, once an interview is done, and let's just say you've interviewed 7 or 8 candidates for a particular role, and you want to recall how a candidate solved a particular problem, you can totally do that with transcription. It's a very, very useful feature for you to recall exactly what was talked about during the interview. And that was it. Or here's another thing for summarization I didn't cover that I do want to cover. So we also literally summarize everything that was talked about. So this is from transcription. These are the topics that were talked through. This is the outline of introductions, and then exactly what problem they're asking for the candidate to solve. This is useful for TA too. So talent acquisition professionals who see the technical interview process as a little bit of a black box. You can jump in here and get a summary of exactly what the hiring team did, just to make sure that everyone is following sort of the same guidelines and making sure that they're preparing candidates to be as successful as they possibly can be. And yeah, this is really, really useful just to summarize things, like I said, to be able to recall after you do 7 interviews for one role and you want to come back and compare and contrast. On top of that, we're going to be building comparing and contrasting features for summarization over the next 6 months or so. So I would say just keep an eye out for product releases, because we're going to be building that into the product as well. And that is CoderPad interview. I guess to wrap this all the way up and relate it back to the topic of the webinar, our stance is you want to allow candidates to use all of the tools that they have on the job to make it a realistic interview. And what we mean by that is, the best interviews are the ones where you have the highest signal, and the highest signal interviews are ones where you give the candidates all the tools they would have on the job to do the job for the role that you're hiring for. And this absolutely includes AI tooling. So yeah, that is interview. That is our pitch for how to both respond to cheaters who are using AI tooling to try to subvert the process, and also how to enable candidates to be able to use all the tools they do on a day-to-day basis.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nathan. That was really helpful. Actually, thank you to both of you. That was really insightful. We have a couple questions. I think we're just breezing through everything, but before we get into the live questions, let's throw a poll on the screen, just to see, I want to make sure everybody has the resources they need moving forward. I know this was a pretty in-depth demo, but let's throw the poll on the screen. This poll is, if you feel like your interview process needs a little bit of help, we would love to reach out and set up a call or set up a meeting. So feel free to go ahead and answer that as you please. Otherwise, I'd be happy to send some additional resources, but we can definitely dive deeper on a more personalized call.
Yeah, I can chug through some of the questions, Caroline. So in the Q&A, there's one asking about the CoderPad question bank. So let me share screen again really quickly. So this is CoderPad's screen. So as a part of the enterprise package, there are over 4,000 questions. You can filter these by domain. So if you want to test somebody on AWS, you can look at just questions that are AWS. There are a huge number of domains that we support. These are all pre-built. So we have customers that use only pre-built questions for their screening process, which works for a variety of our customers. We also have customers that only create custom questions, and sometimes they use our question bank as a starting point for those. Our recommendation would be, you want to ask candidates questions that are the most relevant to the job. Sometimes that's, hey, can you solve some basic questions in AWS, but you want to supplement those with things that are very, very specific to the role and the job. To just use Frank's example of the autonomous driving company that we showed you some questions for before, we would recommend there be questions in the screening process that are relevant to the domain and both the domain and the role that they're being asked to do the interview on. So yeah, I mean, again, back to the best signal part. The best signal is candidates, with the tools that they're going to use on the job, and also questions that are as relevant as possible to the domain and they're going to be working in, and the job that they are working on. Let me see. There was another question. Let's see, for the interview summary, will a company be able to create the summary topics or information we want to be summarized, and will it be customizable? So it's a great question. For right now, it just pulls out a summary of the topics that were talked about for the transcription part, during like literal words that people said during the interview. I think this is a question more about like, hey, can I tell me if this is wrong, Mike. Can I ask about particular topics that were discussed during the interview? This is a feature that we're talking about building. Nothing concrete on the roadmap right now. Customizability is something we're definitely going to be looking to add in the future. And Mike, tell me if you had any follow-ups to that. Be happy to.
I guess one thing to piggyback on that is we are. By design, we're trying to pull out the facts and summarization of what happened, and I think be able to surface that to anyone who maybe didn't attend, or also, of course, I think we also find functionality for the interviewer to be able to focus on the interview versus taking notes, and then to kind of jog their memory. I think when Nathan was on the screen, there is this copy all button. I think our intent is for that to, I think we all hear and know about and are maybe guilty of, hey, you just finished an interview with a candidate. Can you please submit your feedback? And what a maybe joy that is to go ask people for that feedback. And so we've tried to make that as easy as possible. Our hope is that, again, we've serviced the facts, and then, maybe it's like, hey, referenced line 3 when the candidate, and we're surfacing how they approach the problem, actually showed remarkable creativity. And that's maybe like the way of using that within your workflow to automate to some extent, and to make it much easier and quicker to collect feedback. More directly, Mike, if you have some specific thoughts or concerns, we want to partner with our customers and get this feedback. And so honestly, you can reach out to me, or I guess this is going out to the internet. I'm at Frank at, it's a pretty easy email. And so, yeah, reach out if you want to talk and go further. I'd be happy to do that.
Awesome.
And there was one more question. How can I create it myself create a basic question to test some candidates? Example, to find the first non-repeating character in a string using a hash map in Java. You can do that in either screen or interview. So I think we have some examples that are pertinent to that in screen that you can start your question from and then piggyback upon that. But in both screen and interview, we fully support you creating a question that is fully customized. So it's very easy. You click a couple of buttons and you create your question. In interview, in screen and interview, I showed you an example. The real estate example was a custom question that was created for a specific customer, and you can do that as well in the interview product. You can create as many custom questions that are specific to the skills that you want to test as you want.
Awesome. Thank you. I know we have a little bit of time left. This is the best time to ask questions. Otherwise, Frank, thank you for dropping your email in there. You'll be hearing from me. I'll send some more resources. But like I said, while we have these experts, looks like Ryan has a question. With the API, can you pull in the summarized feedback automatically into the ATS? I think that's an excellent question.
So today, no. This is something we are thinking about. I think the challenge here is that ATSs are usually not particularly flexible about what data you can push back into them. So we are actively discussing some of this with our ATS partners, which we support the vast majority of the ATSs in the market. So today, no, you can't pull summarization back into the ATS. We are actively discussing this with partners.
Yeah, I see multiple questions about this, Ryan and Joel. I think honestly, we have this available via API, and so where I would press you, and to the extent that you're hopefully a customer of both us and whichever ATS presumably that you're paying for, I would love for you to start that conversation. The limitation is not our API. We have this available. The limitation is mostly on the ATS side of their ability to both consume and display this. And so, yeah, I think ultimately we have this available readily. And then from a legal standpoint, how do we navigate? Sorry, I'm reading this certainly live. Treated equally by ensuring, yeah. So essentially, we do go to quite a bit of extent to make sure that we are making sure that our questions and tests are valid. Obviously, like where you are customizing that then falls under your own camp. But honestly, it's something we actually encourage. It's much better candidate experience when you are interviewing at CoderPad in our case, and not answering something about shopping carts at a grocery store. Like it doesn't sing. It doesn't provide a nice detailed candidate experience. It doesn't give a glimpse of what it'll be like to work at this company. And so we very much encourage customization. But yes, we in using a question bank and using the tools that we have within our products, that is how you get the standardization and of course the calibration as you send it out to candidates to get the feedback in kind of in many ways. What I showed with that screen bell curve is the feedback of like, have you calibrated and made your test as difficult as it needs to be, and not too difficult and not too easy, but that Goldilocks, it just has that nice curve.
Incredible. All right, I think we covered almost all of the questions. I'm gonna give everybody, 60 more seconds to weigh in, ask any questions. Otherwise, I'll say the cliche, we'll give you 5 minutes back into your day. And we really do appreciate you coming and joining us for the demonstration. I will send more resources, like I said. 60 more seconds. Any other questions from our friends? Awesome. Great. I guess we will wrap here. Thanks again for joining us. We hope you join us again soon. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, y'all.